$1.39 trillion. I mean, let that sink in for a second. That is the total amount of credit card debt held by Americans today. 1.39 trillion. It's a staggering figure, right? And honestly, it's a mountain of financial obligation that is quietly reshaping the entire American dream. Understanding this number and how it breaks down is absolutely crucial if we want to understand the hidden financial struggles millions of people are dealing with right now. Now, you might be wondering where all this debt comes from. Well, what's truly fascinating is that this staggering figure actually shatters a super common myth. We often assume, that this massive debt is the result of reckless splurging, designer clothes, luxury vacations, the whole shebang. But reality tells a very different story. Almost 3/4 of these credit card balances, exactly 73%, are driven by absolute survival expenses. We're talking medical bills, car repairs, just buying groceries. People aren't using plastic to live large. They're literally just using it to get by. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a fascinating, albeit kind of sobering journey into the architecture of American finances. We're going to dive deep into how debt uniquely mutates and impacts financial stability across completely different age groups in America. Because, as you'll see, debt isn't just a one-size-fits-all problem. It evolves, taking on a whole new shape at every single stage of life. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with America's mountain of debt. Then we'll move generation by generation. We'll look at Gen Z's education trap, millennials missing the middle class, Gen X hitting their peak debt years, and boomers facing retirement on thin ice. Finally, we'll wrap up by exploring the fragile economic foundation this creates for all of us. Let's get into it. Section 1, America's mountain of debt. Let's start by taking a macro view of our current financial landscape. There is a quote from Robert Kropp at the Fulcrum that absolutely hits the nail on the head. He says, "The lived reality of millions of households isn't prosperity, it's precariousness." And man, is that true. Despite what looks like a booming economy on paper, the underlying foundation is shaking. I mean, credit card delinquencies are currently at a 13-year high. Depending on which survey you look at, anywhere from half to 2/3 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck right now. Wages and living costs have fundamentally decoupled, leaving this massive gaping hole that families are forced to fill with debt. Section 2. Gen Z, the education trap. Let's see how this intense financial reality hits our youngest adults. Generation Z is entering adulthood with unprecedented financial anchors tied directly to their ankles. Today, earning a basic bachelor's degree leaves the average student with $30,000 in federal loans. Let's put that into perspective for a second. The cost of college has surged 150% since the year 2000. 150%. What used to be a highly reliable ladder right up to the middle class has completely transformed into a heavy, multi-decade financial trap. And, this immense pressure has given rise to some entirely new financial behaviors. Enter the concept of doom spending. It's a term born straight out of internet culture, and it's defined as financial impulse buying, fueled by this sinking feeling that traditional life milestones are just impossible to reach. Think about it. When a 20-something looks at today's housing market and realizes they might literally never afford a down payment, the psychological toll is huge. So what do? They buy small comforts, a fancy coffee, a designer candle, whatever, because the big goals just feel permanently out of reach anyway. But Gen Z definitely isn't a monolith. They actually exhibit two drastically opposing coping mechanisms. On one hand, you have the doom spending we just talked about, but on the other hand, you have this trend called loud budgeting. This is where young people vocally, almost proudly, declare their financial boundaries. They're literally telling their friends, "Hey, I can't go to dinner tonight, I'm loud budgeting this month." So you have this entire generation oscillating wildly between super strict financial discipline and totally fatalistic spending. Section 3, Millennials missing middle class. Let's step up to the next generation. Millennials are the generation currently waking up to the fact that the price of admission to the middle class has completely, fundamentally changed. Check out these numbers. Since the year 2000, the median income has grown by 96%. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, actually, hold on. The cost of a college degree over that same time is up 150%. And home prices? Up a staggering 164%. The cost of housing and education has so vastly outpaced millennial wage growth, it totally validates all their financial anxiety. The math just doesn't add up for them anymore. And this financial pressure builds into very real, very tangible life consequences. This debt burden isn't just some number on a spreadsheet. It's fundamentally altering the American life trajectory. Because of student debt alone, 13% of borrowers are delaying marriage, 15% are putting off having children, and homeownership, get this, in 1981, the median age of a first-time homebuyer was 29. Today, it's 38. Entire life milestones are being pushed back by almost a full decade. Moving right along to Section 4, Gen X, peak debt years.
So Generation X is experiencing the most intense, multi-directional financial squeeze of anybody right now. When you break down the average credit card debt by generation, a really clear pattern emerges. Gen Z is sitting at roughly $3,500. Millennials and boomers are hovering right near $7,000. But Gen X, they hold the highest average credit card debt of all at $9,600. They are caught squarely in the middle of the sandwich years, being squeezed from both sides.
So why exactly is Gen X's debt so high? Well, it's because they aren't just paying their own mortgages and caring for their aging parents, they're also increasingly financing their kids' incredibly expensive college degrees. Right now, 3.7 million families hold $104 billion, billion with a B, in Parent Plus loans. They are literally mortgaging their own financial present to try and somehow secure their children's future. The pressure here is so immense that a record share of Americans are draining their future retirement savings just to survive today's emergencies. When we look at 401k hardship withdrawals, the top reasons aren't for, buying a boat or taking a luxury trip. 36% are doing it to avoid foreclosure or eviction. 31% are pulling money to cover medical expenses. 13% for tuition. Financial experts call this leakage, and it's a real game changer because it's erasing decades of compound growth. People are doing this because they simply have no other emergency funds left to tap into. Section 5. Boomers. Retirement on thin ice. Baby boomers are currently navigating the immense vulnerabilities of living on a fixed income in an incredibly inflationary world. And one of the most terrifying financial cliffs for this generation is healthcare. Long-term care can easily run $50,000 to $100,000 for a single year. These massive, unpredictable medical bills are depleting retirement accounts rapidly, leaving a lot of seniors relying heavily on high-interest credit cards just to bridge the gap in their final years. Adding to that anxiety is the sheer uncertainty around the social safety net. Shifting political policy proposals act as massive economic variables for retirees. For example, there are policy proposals out there like eliminating taxes on Social Security benefits. Now, neutrally speaking, while that might sound appealing, it would significantly alter trust fund revenues, potentially accelerating the program's insolvency to the year 2032. For retirees who rely heavily on these benefits to survive, shifting policies represent a really serious structural vulnerability. Section 6. A fragile economic foundation. Let's pull back and look at the big picture. To truly understand how this cross-generational debt affects the whole country, we need to talk about Minsky's financial instability hypothesis. Economist Hyman Minsky theorized that prolonged periods of economic stability and booms don't actually eliminate risk, they breed it. It's like a giant trap. People in systems take on more and more debt, assuming the good times are just going to last forever. So what looks like perfect stability on paper is actually masking severe, systemic brittleness underneath. And honestly, we're seeing that brittleness absolutely everywhere right now. Families lack basic emergency funds, which leads directly to a reliance on high-interest predatory loans. Meanwhile, small businesses, which are the literal backbone of our economy, are freezing their hiring and expansion because of shifting policies and tariff uncertainties. When both individual households and small businesses are stuck in this perpetual survival mode, it scales up. It weakens overall growth, stifles innovation, and damages our economic resilience. Which leaves us with a really critical question to end on. If booms breed risk, and debt is the silent architecture of our lives across every single generation, just how fragile is our foundation right now? That $1.39 trillion in credit card debt isn't just some abstract economic metric. It's a reflection of how hard it has become to achieve and maintain financial stability in America today. Take a moment to think about your own generation and what this debt cycle means for your own future. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helped clear through some of the noise. See you next time.